Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Building a Better Tomorrow Today podcast. Today's episode is called Building a Better Tomorrow Today Inside the Classrooms. We have our lovely guest, Ms. Jaquita Zachary Johnson, here to talk about some fabulous topics. And I just want to give her an introduction to invite our guests. You all are in for a wonderful treat today. Ms. Jaquita Zachary Johnson is an author and a behavior intervention specialist in public school. She assists students with building stronger social and emotional learning skills, prepares them for success in the school, home, and life. She's worked with students, and also she's discovered that in working with students, she found that a lot of them had low self-esteem, low perception, and that some would put others down, and she wanted to see how to build them up. What we love about this author today, she has an excellent book out called I Am Pretty. I Am Pretty, she says, was written to inspire girls to love themselves and highlight their true prettiness coming from the inside. What I love about this book in particular is that pretty stands with an acronym. She has an acronym to go along with it that she'll discuss. And we just want to just send a warm welcome and introduce today Miss Jaquita. How are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely well. Thank you all so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm honored to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it is very interesting, the work that you've been doing in the school, and especially the behavior intervention aspect of your work. So I was just wondering, how did you get started into that? And what is some of the most notable situations that you have found that need to be addressed, and how do you address them?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have been an educator, for well over 20 years.
Wow.
And I know. Things have changed, times have changed, parents have changed, students have changed in that amount of time. And so basically, around my 13th year in the classroom, I became what's called an early intervention teacher. And those are students that are at risk as it relates to academics. And so with that job also came the opportunity for me to be what's called an SST chair. And I don't know if you're familiar with RTI and the routes to intervention, but that's our tier 3. And so basically I had to assist teachers with interventions with students that were struggling academically as well as behavior. And so with that, I also had the opportunity to apply for another job. So I was a EIP/SST chair for a number of years, about 4 or 5 years, I'm not sure. And then our county saw the need to have assistance with students that are having challenges behaviorally. So they hired several behavior intervention specialists. And with me already doing interventions and understanding the SST process, I applied and was able to get the job. And I have been doing that for about 5 years. So don't do the math. Please don't do the math, because I haven't added it up. But anyway, as it relates to how long I've been in the classroom, EIP. Anyway, so I've been a behavior intervention specialist for about 5 years. And so we focus a lot on social emotional learning. And you're right in that my new book, well, not that new, came out 2019. I Am Pretty came from that. I saw that I was meeting with a lot of young ladies, and they were just kind of putting other girls down, thinking it'll help them. And I would meet with some of them and meet with some of their parents. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so as I talked to the students, I understood that they didn't love themselves. And like I said, and that was their goal, to try and bully other girls and put other girls down. And so I went through a very traumatic time in my life, in the fact that when I was younger, I was bullied by my teachers, and my teachers would say all kind of ugly things about me. And I just started not liking myself. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to write a book to help young ladies to understand that true prettiness comes from within. And you have to spend time and take time to develop your character, and also just to love the skin that they're in. I had the opportunity to speak at a school here in Atlanta, and it was a young lady that was in the third grade, and she was a little bit on the heavy side, a little bit darker, but her her school had like a girls group, and the girls group was reading the book and doing activities and things of that nature. And they asked me to come and speak, and when I finished speaking, she came up to me and she thanked me for writing the book. And basically, she said that, she had been bullied and everything like that. And she wanted to kill herself because of the bullies. And she said, but after I read your book, and we've been talking about your book, I decided just to love me.
Wow.
And honestly, that's the goal of the book, to understand that, to love yourself. We can't compare ourselves. And, when we start doing that, we start, comparison is the thief of joy. And so we start looking at what we don't have, or, things of that nature. And so I'm grateful. I'm like, I told the Lord, hey, if I wrote that book just for her, all is well. And so that's how I got started being a behavior intervention specialist. It has been a whirlwind from me just getting the opportunity to meet students and teachers and assist. I have a lot of stories, but to me, that is the one that's most precious, and that's the purpose and why I do what I do, especially writing the books, is that young lady understanding that, hey, I just decided to love me, and that's the goal, and that's the
Awesome. Well, as a side note, I follow you on Facebook, and on Facebook, you exude confidence. I see that you're a full-figured model.
I am.
So beautiful in all your outfits and your beautiful smile. And I mean,
Thank you.
Wonderful. So you're actually doing what you preach, and it's awesome.
I am currently also Miss Georgia Plus Intercontinental, and I decided to get in that pageant, not for the sake of, the outward stuff, but just to let young ladies know that prettiness and beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. And so that's been amazing to, be a part of that pageant and have that platform. And we compete nationally in May, so looking forward to that.
That is awesome. That is so cool to know. And speaking of pretty, can you tell us the acronym for Pretty with the Book?
So the book technically don't have an acronym, but what I have is called Pretty Parties. Okay. And so when people book the parties, they can choose from one of the acronyms of pretty, right?
Love that.
So when we look at P, poised, and that's dealing with our character development and esteem. And so oftentimes I go in, a lot of times that's what happens. And so with our pretty parties, it can be either me going into the schools. I have held birthday parties, and people have booked me to do birthday parties. And so we read the book and do all kind of activities, art therapy activities. And so if you want to look at being poised, and of course we walk the pink carpet and all of that. So we talk about etiquette and everything like that. So when you look at the P, that's for being poised, and then R is respectful, right? And so understanding how to be respectful to themselves and others. And so they may say, hey, Ms. Zachary, we want to focus in on the R. We need to, my kid is cutting up, cursing everybody out, So with that, we focus in on being respectful, of course, to themselves and others. And then when you look at the E in pretty, we talk about etiquette. And so we talk about proper dinner placement, proper seating, and all of the etiquette things that, social graces, if you will. Also, we have talent. When you look at one of the T's, and that's talent development, that's goals, entrepreneurship, and things of that nature, and motivation. And so I also have a little camp that we do, and Books, Brains, and Beauty. And so we focus in a lot on their talent, be it talent with writing, or what type of talent we're tapping into, right? So I'm just open and available, to be used. And so use of God. So the other T talk about thinking, right? And so we talk about proper decision making. A lot of times I have my middle schoolers, they don't know how to make choices, or they're not thinking about consequences and things of that nature. So they say, hey, Ms. Zachary, we're going to work on thinking. So just kind of have an acronym to just kind of help people understand, okay, when you ask me to come in, what next? And then the why, Lastly is yearning for more, and that's our entrepreneurship development, also with our writing development and things of that nature. How to create a business, how to market, brand. With some of my girls, we've created lotions and lip glosses and perfumes and all that kind of stuff. And they had to create their commercial. They had to talk about what was different. So when you think about that, that is our pretty topics, and that's what the pretty stands for that.
That is
So what
fabulous.
A lot.
do you deal with?
Come again?
What grade level do you teach?
Well, I actually deal with pre-K all the way up to 12th grade, believe it or not.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes. And so also, believe it or not, some women have had me to come in and we focus in on self-esteem. And so we would do a whole lot of development, because I also do art therapy as well. And so a lot of the things that I do, the premise is dealing with art therapy. And so, yeah, our most famous one is with our pretty parties. So we come in and do the self-esteem. And of course, I read the book. I tell a little bit about my story. We do a whole affirmation with the mirror. And then they create their own it's like their own face, little torso, and they write different acronyms about themselves. So I'm pretty brave, I'm pretty bold, all of that. And we just have a great, great, great time. And so I'm excited about that. And my new book, my newest book came out October 28th. And yes. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Oh, I can see it.
All right. And what's different is boys. It's for boys.
Oh.
So I have, of course, parents and kids. Well, do you have anything for boys? Do you have anything for boys? And so, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. We now have a book for boys, and it is focused in on development as well. It's called Listen Up, Guys, Life Little Instruction Book for Boys. And so you already know my topics with my young men is just helping them make different choices, because sometimes they don't know how to make those choices. And so it's just like a little life instruction book about asking questions. And so we go through the different the alphabets, asking questions, believe in yourself, celebrate your achievements, all those types of things. And so it's absolutely awesome. And of course, I could not I'll be remiss if I also didn't have them a little workbook that go along with that as well. So they have a little coloring book as well, coloring activities that's aimed at building self-awareness, life skills, and confidence in children, just like we have for the I Am Pretty book as well. So yes, ma'am.
Are such a gem. They are lucky to have you.
I'm excited. I love it. I am lucky. I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have a job and still be able to, walk in purpose and do what I love to do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm excited about that.
I was wondering though, in your 20 years experience, what have you come to terms with as one of the most relevant situations that cause for children, at risk to act out? And so it sounds like your art program is a good effective measure for dealing with it. And so I was wondering what other things you had for therapy for children.
So one of the things that I have found out is I'm sorry, my husband's texting me. He already know I'm talking to y'all, right? But he's still harassing me. I'm sorry. It's trauma. A lot of students have gone through some type of trauma, and what may be traumatic to you may not be traumatic to me, and vice versa. Right. So I work in a county. We are 100% free and reduced lunch. And so you can imagine our socioeconomics that we have in that. Hold on 1 second. All right, I apologize. So you can imagine the socioeconomics that we have in that. And so I think that a lot of our students are dealing with trauma. And when we're dealing with trauma, we got to make sure we understand trauma-informed care. And so, like I said, a good thing about my district is that we are also an SEL district, meaning we focus heavily on social emotional learning. We also are a PBIS district with positive behavior interventions and supports. And so we understand that. That our students need to learn these skills. Number one, of being self-aware, being socially aware, not only our students, but also our teachers, and understanding where our students are coming from, and dealing with our students restoratively. So we have been really big about not necessarily suspending our students, but dealing with them restoratively. We have lots of programs after school that's aimed at teaching them particular skills. And so I remember I was with a group of my young men in elementary school, and I was just telling them, hey, we're going to learn this, we're going to learn that. This is what we're going to be doing. And one young man said, wait a minute, is this like home training? And I'm like, sir, you are on my list. So what does that mean? That means you're displaying behaviors that evidently you're showing that you need these skills that, we're going to have to tell you about how to do this in school. I hope and I know that you're getting it at home. However, you come into school and you're displaying behaviors that's different from that. So
Exactly.
that's what we do. And so I think that's very important to understand some of the trauma in our students' background and go from there. Sometimes, I don't know if you read that poem about what I wish my teacher knew, but our kids are dealing with a lot. I wish my teacher knew that I didn't do my homework because we didn't have lights, or we got some kids that's doing homework in cars, or, don't have a place to stay, things of that nature. So our kids are dealing with a lot. So before you go and yell, where my homework at? Why don't you have a pencil? Those type of things, understand what they may be going through, not necessarily crippling the students, but understanding, okay, so let me see what's happening, pull the child to the side. Don't embarrass the child. Don't, call them out. I tell teachers all the time, if you don't want your principal or your supervisor calling you out, don't call out a child. Where my homework? I'm calling your parents. Well, how would you feel if your principal, said in a board meeting or wherever, hey, I'm calling you out, or I'm saying I'm dock your pay or whatever. You wouldn't want that. So let's be respectful, not only to adults and our colleagues, but let's be respectful to our students as well. We ask them for respect. We also must be respectful to them as well in return. So just being understanding trauma.
Yeah.
I love that you said that key piece, because a lot of times, the educators are so focused on, making sure the student doesn't slip up, but we forget to realize, we're adults, we're humans, and sometimes we make mistakes. And we just had this conversation, my mother and I, we were talking about with our children's book, how we're like the same as you. We definitely, within our book, the Sandbox series, try to teach the social emotional learning, because growing up, I didn't have that in the classroom, to where I felt like, me being an African American girl, I wasn't represented in these children's books. And so I think it does fall on the educators a lot to be more inclusive in these classrooms. And, that is the, message of this episode today, is building a better tomorrow today, the classroom edition. And I think back to in my classroom, how I went to a predominantly white school growing up. And every time, I would try to ask, where are the Black stories? Why are we only hearing about this on Black Month? And these are just negative stories that aren't portraying our true culture and giving us the respect that they got year round. So I like to say that you teach, other educators as well. And thank you for sharing your story about how, your teacher, I'm so sorry to hear that, was disrespecting you in the classroom. And I just think you're a true example of, speaking light into children, modeling the way for them and giving them these affirmations that can go such a long way. And I'm just so grateful for you today, just for being on our show today, because this right here is the message that we truly want to just hit home with a lot of people, the parents who are sending their children to school. I think it's so important to have conversations when they come home, like, hey, what did you learn in school? And not just what did you learn, is your teacher respecting you? A lot of times.
And are you respecting the teacher?
And respecting the teacher, there it is. And I just feel like having those conversations, sometimes we think, oh, the child doesn't want to talk, but I think having that alone time, one-on-one, encouraging children to speak up to their parents and to also have that level of respect within the home to where they are respecting their teachers, because I just want to shout out to you. You all are amazing. The work that you all do is not for the faint at heart. And
I'm not in the classroom anymore. So I definitely want to say thank you to all the educators out there, honestly, because it takes a soldier to do it. I promise you.
Yes.
I promise you, it's hard. It's hard. You have to deal with behavior. You have to deal with a whole lot and still worry about test scores and how, little Johnny is doing. And so honestly, I'm grateful. And thank you so much for all our educators out there.
That's true. And there were so many things you said that I too can relate to, because I had worked in a school district for at-risk children too, where they were put out of all the schools.
Okay.
And they had to go to this school for at-risk kids too. And they were all levels of income and, socioeconomic backgrounds and whatnot. It was just misbehavior, drugs, or whatever they had done wrong. But you raised a very good point about respecting them as you want respect, because I found that a lot of those teachers that were in the school that I was at didn't respect the children. And if you don't respect them, then you're going to have them acting out and having more behavioral problems. And just like you said, they're human beings and we all want respect.
Yeah.
And so I think it's rare for a teacher, to think like you do, because at the time that I was in the district, I was one of the only ones that believed in respecting them, hearing them out and helping them develop as a person instead of putting my foot in their neck. I mean, they were already put out of the district, and a lot of these kids went on to, either go into reform schools or jail and things, for things that just were misunderstandings within the teachers to the student situation. So I think it's very good that there's someone like you that the teachers can talk to and that the students can talk to and gain clarity on situations and learn how to communicate with one another so that we can all help each other grow. And when it comes to building a better tomorrow today, you definitely are doing that. You do more than talk the talk, you walk the walk.
Yes.
And we're proud to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful also for my district for seeing the need and meeting the need and understanding where our children are and trying to meet our children where they are. So I'm grateful for that. So we're trying to change mindsets throughout. And so that's our goal, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's about uplifting them so we can really have a better tomorrow, because they're the ones that's going to take it on. And so we have to uplift them as best we can. Sometimes that takes patience, compassion, and a whole lot of respect. So more people like you, we'll get there.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Dawn, can you let our listeners know where we can purchase your books and the workbooks?
Yes, ma'am. Everything, of course, is on Amazon. Just simply type in my name, Jaquita Zachary Johnson, and you will see all my stuff come up, the 5 books. So please purchase, please support, write a review.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you for that. We definitely will. And I just want to say thank you for being the embodiment of building a better tomorrow today for the youth and for the adults and the educators. And we truly appreciate you coming on today. And we just want to wish you all the best. And tell since we said hello, and they are so fortunate to have you. And this is going to be such a better road because of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for having me.
All right.
You're very welcome. You have a blessed one.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.